Please note that the content of this video may contain errors. If you would like to view subtitles, please use the subtitle button on the screen. Now, let's begin our topic, the life of John Winthrop, Governor of Massachusetts. Explore the life of John Winthrop, America's founding father, and the vision of the new world he created. John Winthrop was born in England in 1588 during the reign of Elizabeth I. He grew up during a time of historical change. England was prosperous during this period, but it was also plagued by political and religious unrest. John's birth, coinciding with such a historical backdrop, had a profound impact on his later life. John was born into a wealthy family. His father, Adam Winthrop, was a successful merchant in London. He studied law and practiced law locally. Adam had a strong desire for his son John to pursue a career in law, and provided him with the best possible education. John received a strict Puritan upbringing from an early age. Puritanism was a religious reformation movement that sought to purify the Church of England at the time. The Winthrop family was deeply rooted in this faith, and John was strongly influenced by it. He sought to live in accordance with God's will, leading a moral and disciplined life. 1588 was also the year England defeated the Spanish Armada in the Battle of the Armada. This victory boosted England's confidence and international standing, and was a key factor in John's future decision to emigrate across the ocean. This victory boosted England's confidence and international standing, and was a key factor in John's future decision to emigrate. It's safe to say that this national pride played a significant role. In 1636, John entered Trinity College, Cambridge. At the time, universities were a training ground for leaders. Cambridge, in particular, was renowned as England's intellectual center. Here, John learned the basics of law while simultaneously absorbing a wide range of knowledge. The education he gained in this way formed the foundation of his life and played a part in his later political leadership. John matured into a brilliant young man with high ideals at a young age. John Winthrop was highly ambitious from a young age. He first married at the age of 17 to a woman named Mary Force. This marriage was in keeping with social norms of the time and was intended to fulfill the responsibility of raising a family. His marriage to Mary marked an important step in establishing himself not only in the family, but also in the political and legal fields. Unfortunately, Mary passed away just a few years after their marriage, leaving John deep sorrow in his heart. However, this experience also helped him mature further and provided an opportunity to find a new purpose in life. John then married for the second time and began to seriously study law. He aimed to establish a legal career in England and enrolled at the prestigious London Law School. Inner Temple. The Inner Temple was the most cutting-edge place for legal study at the time. Here, John acquired a wide range of legal knowledge. Here, John gained extensive legal knowledge. His enthusiasm for his studies was so great that he was respected by those around him. John began to envision how he would apply his knowledge in the real world. John's motivation to study law was also driven by the social upheaval in England at the time. He began to believe that those in power should skillfully use the law to ensure social stability. This was not just an ideal. As a practicing lawyer, he was driven by a strong desire to establish justice. While studying law, John aspired to tackle social issues from a practical perspective. John Winthrop's legal career not only helped him find meaning in life, but also laid the foundation for his later public life. The way his legal experience and the insights he gained there became central to his thinking foreshadowed the influential political leader he would become. John Winthrop's decision to leave England and seek new lands was shadowed by complex religious tensions. This was a glimpse into how influential he would become as a political leader. In early 17th century England, the conflict between Protestants and Catholics intensified. It had profound ripples that went beyond the national boundaries. This religious conflict also affected the daily lives of Winthrop. As many people lived through these uncertain times, calls for religious freedom grew louder. At the center of this were the people known as the Puritans. They strongly desired reform of the Church of England and devoted themselves to realizing their ideal church vision. However, the Church of England, with its close ties to the monarchy, did not accept Winthrop and his colleagues' reform proposals. They strongly desired reform of the Church of England and devoted themselves to realizing their ideal image of the Church. However, the Church of England, with its close ties to the monarchy, did not accept Winthrop and his colleagues' reform proposals. Gradually, pressure and oppression against them intensified. This led many Puritans to head for the New World, America. Winthrop himself, based on his experience as a lawyer, sympathized with the movement for religious freedom. His letters, written in the early 1630s, offer a glimpse into his inner conflict and hopes during this period. He dreamed of forming a community inspired by God, and he felt he needed a new environment to achieve this. With these thoughts in mind, Winthrop reached a decisive moment. In 1629, the King of England granted a charter to establish the Massachusetts Bay Colony. This gave Winthrop the opportunity to realize his Puritan ideals as the ruler of the new settlement. "I have an opportunity to realize my Puritan ideals." His motivation for emigration was not simply a means of escape, but rather a lofty goal: to build an ideal society. Realizing their faith in a new land was the next step for many Puritans, and Winthrop was at the forefront of this movement, deciding to emigrate to a new land. The journey of the Arberg across the Atlantic Ocean to its destination in the New World, specifically Massachusetts Bay, was filled with hopes and challenges. At the time, the Arberg and other ships in the fleet were carrying approximately 700 immigrants. Among them were Puritans led by John Winthrop. Under his leadership, they sought to build a new community. Winthrop's decision to sail to the New World was driven by religious conflict within England. Due to religious persecution under the reign of Charles I, many Puritans felt a crisis of faith. They sought religious freedom and an ideal society and set out for new lands to protect themselves. The voyage was by no means easy. On board, it was difficult to secure food, and they were constantly exposed to the threat of bad weather and disease. Even in these circumstances, Winthrop continued to demonstrate leadership. During the voyage, he preached about the goal of becoming a community as the body of Christ and worked to unite everyone. This approach would later be known as Winthrop's sermon and would become widely known as his philosophy. The voyage also had a practical purpose. Winthrop and his companions planned to develop the land and pursue economic profits through the Massachusetts Bay Company. Life in the New World was not only a way to realize their faith, but also a significant challenge to establish a practical foundation for life. After an arduous voyage of approximately 2 months, the group finally arrived in Massachusetts Bay. For many of the immigrants, their arrival marked the beginning of a new life. For Winthrop himself, it was also a major step toward building his ideal society. Under his leadership, people looked forward to seeing how a Puritan society would take shape in the land. Anticipation grew for the fate that awaited them. When John Winthrop was appointed governor of the Massachusetts colony, he faced the immense responsibility of laying the foundations for a new society. Prior to this, the Massachusetts Bay Colony Company, founded in London in 1629, encouraged immigration from England to the Americas, aiming to build a Puritan society in the New World. He encouraged immigration from England to the Americas and aimed to build a Puritan society in the New World. Winthrop took command of the company and became a central figure in realizing his ideal society. His governorship included important supporters such as Christopher Corley and Thomas Dudley. Together, they planned to establish an orderly society in the new land. One of the first steps in Winthrop's reign was the establishment of laws and regulations. Winthrop established a legal system based on Puritan values, ensuring that people lived by these teachings and encouraging society to function under justice. The ideal society they envisioned was expected to fulfill the role of a city of light. Winthrop was passionate about instilling Puritan ethics throughout society. His underlying goal was to free the Puritans from religious oppression and create a land where they could freely pursue their faith. His rule was to create a society where individuals could act freely, but responsibly through law and order. One of the laws established is known as the Body of Liberty. This code was based on the English legal system of the time, reflecting Puritan doctrine, and adapted to suit the colonies. Through this code, John Winthrop sought to balance liberty and obligation, and to foster a sense of unity within society. Winthrop emphasized the necessity of law and order, recognizing them as the key to realizing Puritan ideals. Thus, under Winthrop's supervision, the Massachusetts colony gradually took shape. The society he envisioned was not merely the creation of a religious community. It was a grand attempt to build a civilized society with a long-term perspective. John Winthrop's famous sermon, "The City on the Mountain," it was a testament to his grand vision for an ideal society. This sermon demonstrated his grand vision for an ideal society. At the time, Europe was in constant religious conflict. Many people migrated to the New World in search of a stable place of faith. In this context, Winthrop aimed to build not just a place of refuge, but an exemplary Christian community based on God's will. In 1630, while aboard the Arabella and on the voyage to the New World, he preached and spoke to the immigrants about the concept of this model community. "We are like a city on a mountain, exposed to the public." In other words, they demonstrated their determination that their very lives should serve as the standard for this new society. Behind this was a strong belief that their mission in the New World was to build a society based on strict Puritanism and, through it, to glorify God. Winthrop believed that the Americas were the place where Puritanism, which was not accepted in England, could be freely realized. This vision of the City of Light was not simply a religious ideal, but also included the social bonds of community harmony and extending a helping hand to others. His vision was not just a fantasy. Even in the face of harsh conditions, it gradually began to come true through a spirit of mutual aid. It also includes social ties, such as extending a helping hand to others. His vision is more than just fantasy. Even in the face of difficult circumstances, they gradually began to achieve their goals through a spirit of mutual aid. As a result, the Massachusetts colony developed a strong community spirit based on a common purpose, which had a profound influence on the surrounding colonies. His words are deeply rooted in the founding ideals of America today. The concepts Winthrop introduced have become the foundation for fairness and freedom in future generations. It can be said that these ideals continue to be passed down in various forms to modern American society. John Winthrop's governorship inevitably involved conflict with Anne Hutchinson. This incident was a touchstone for Winthrop and had a profound impact on the colony's ideals. Anne Hutchinson was a highly intelligent woman, eager to spread a new interpretation of religion. She claimed to have received direct revelation from God and fervently preached her teachings at home. These new teachings threatened the authority of the traditional church. In the Massachusetts Bay Colony at the time, it was believed that divine revelation came through clergy. Hutchinson's claims were considered heretical. Direct conflict arose between Winthrop and her as he sought to maintain order and control in the municipality. Hutchinson's increasing activism. Winthrop believed her teachings threatened stability within the colony and decided to launch an inquisition. In his view, a common religious and ethical foundation was a key factor in supporting social stability. Once the inquisition began, Hutchinson boldly defended her beliefs. Hutchinson's powerful speeches captivated her supporters. However, Winthrop's resolve remained unwavering, and Hutchinson was ultimately imprisoned and then exiled from Massachusetts. Her expulsion signaled growing tensions over religious diversity within the colony. Winthrop sought to maintain the colony's religious unity through this conflict. Ironically, it also encouraged new immigrants and ideological diversity. The framework established by his rule and conflict sowed the seeds for greater religious tolerance in the future. This event has come to be remembered as a classic example of the clash between individual beliefs and collective unity. Winthrop's religious policies had a far greater impact than he intended, and would continue to influence the development of American society. Winthrop was re-elected governor of Massachusetts. His re-election was driven by a clear need for leadership and the need to rebuild the colony from its difficult circumstances. At the time, the colony was facing a myriad of religious conflicts and economic challenges. Resolving these issues required exceptional leadership. Winthrop's re-election led many to pin their hopes on his experience and convictions. After his re-election, Winthrop began to steer the colony and take measures to restore order. First, he sought to separate religion and politics, once again promoting policies centered on Puritan values. This again intensified conflict with religious pluralists such as Roger Williams, who opposed this. Williams's strong advocacy of religious freedom attracted some supporters. He later became the founder of the Rhode Island colony. Winthrop faced challengers like Williams. He responded by making full use of his personal charm and political agility. He often reconciled opinions within the colony and formulated policies by seeking the greatest common denominator. This approach earned him the respect of other leaders and earned him widespread support. His skills were also particularly effective in economic policy. He implemented a series of measures to promote the development of agriculture and trade, successfully supporting the stability and growth of the colony. However, the conflict was not completely resolved, and internal friction continued. Winthrop always strived to strike a balance, sometimes forcing compromise. Still, his shrewd diplomacy helped the colony avoid major conflict and gradually move forward with reconstruction. And so, his leadership became increasingly sought after. He became the cornerstone of stability in the Massachusetts colony. Even as his health gradually deteriorated, John Winthrop continued to maintain his influence in the colony. His illness was due to the harsh winters that afflicted many people at the time and the limitations of medical care, but his wisdom and insight were still needed. As his health declined, how he sought to shape the future of the colony became even more important. Winthrop devoted much of his time to the young men who would become his successors, teaching them the knowledge and ethics of colonial management. In particular, he passionately advocated for the importance of religious tolerance and a fair judicial system. This would later contribute to the development of Massachusetts. His beliefs were not just ideals, they were the foundation upon which a community was built. He believed that the colony's sovereignty should be maintained. Even as he felt his own decline, Winthrop continued to exert his influence over both close associates and political opponents. He was cautious in his statements and decisions in Parliament, always prioritizing the interests of the colony as a whole. Behind this was his vision of a city of light. He felt strongly that he had to fulfill his role in realizing this ideal. In his final years, he was supported by his trusted family and close friends. Among them, his son, John Winthrop Jr., continued to follow in his father's footsteps and continued to venture into new fields. His son inherited his father's experience and knowledge, and his influence continues to be passed on to new generations. Thus, even as his own health declined, John Winthrop continued to support the foundation of the colony until the very end. His efforts and leadership will not simply disappear immediately after his death. It will continue to live in that place for a long time. They will live on in the land for a long time to come. After John Winthrop's death, the Massachusetts colony he founded continued to play a vital role in American history. His leadership is not just politically influential, but also deeply rooted in culture, values, and his leadership has not only had a political impact, but has also been deeply imprinted on culture, values, and religious ideals. Among these, the idea of the City of Light is particularly noteworthy. This was Winthrop's belief in striving for an ideal community. For example, in the 19th century Transcendentalist movement, the emphasis on freedom of the mind and moral duty was reinterpreted in a new way. Winthrop's influence also extended to politics. The legal system he established later served as the foundation for the democratic system in the United States. For example, his proposal for consensual decision-making became the foundation for later representative democracy. Winthrop also demonstrated how important it was for the new society to maintain a proper balance between freedom and control. His philosophy, also known as the dual meaning of liberty, held that individual freedom and community interests were not in conflict, but rather complemented each other. This philosophy has influenced many politicians and thinkers, and continues to be an American value to this day. Behind the scenes of history, various theories and conspiracy theories surrounding Winthrop have been circulated. For example, some of his contemporaries, concerned about his strictness and political skills, are said to have attempted to curb his influence. However, recent historical research has re-evaluated the excellence of his leadership. Winthrop possessed a timeless vision and the ability to unify people. This is what makes him famous to this day. Winthrop's ideals continue to live on in modern-day America. Politicians and thinkers across the United States repeatedly quote his name and draw inspiration from his teachings when facing new challenges. The legacy of John Winthrop is his timeless values and ideals. Politicians and thinkers across the United States have repeatedly cited his name. His teachings inspire me when I face new challenges. The legacy of John Winthrop is a man whose values and ideals have endured through the ages. Winthrop's vision is alive in America's origins and ideals. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and like it.